that there's a really big urgent message, and you know, I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about the urgency or the big issues, but ultimately, if we want to tackle this, we want to get on the front foot, we've got to bring people with us, and people have got to feel like there's hope, there's a chance we can fix this. And
a clip pops up on your feed, and it hits like a punch. Prince William finally snapped, then another one, and another. Same vibe, same dramatic tone. Same promise that a secret palace message dropped overnight and ended everything. And honestly, it's designed to make you feel like you just missed the biggest royal moment of the decade. But here's the twist nobody likes to admit. The most dangerous part of this saga isn't a single statement. It's the fact that millions of people are being trained to believe one could appear at any second. Because once you believe that, you'll believe almost anything that comes after it. And that's exactly why the William versus Meghan rumor machine keeps winning. Because the real story isn't just who said what, it's who controls the narrative when the monarchy's old rules collide with the internet's new ones. So let's walk through what's actually happening, what we know, what's been claimed, and why these stories spread so fast that they start feeling real. It starts with the statement. You've probably seen the wording. It's always written like a verdict. Cold. Final. Something like, the palace will no longer engage. Someone is cut off. The future king has had enough. It reads like a movie ending. Neat, satisfying, brutal. But official royal communications don't usually sound like that. When the palace wants to draw a line, it tends to do it in a very specific way. Formal language, careful phrasing, and just enough detail to shut the door without giving the other side a new headline. That's why one of the most cited hard-line moments people confuse with these viral claims is actually from 2020, when the arrangement around Harry and Meghan stepping back was laid out publicly. The official statement said the Sussexes would not use their HRH titles because they were no longer working royals. That part is real, and it's right there on the official royal website. The royal family, and that right there is the fuel. Because once something official exists, the internet can remix it into 100 new versions that sound even harsher. So the question becomes, why are people so ready to believe William would drop a headline-grabbing personal takedown? Because the fracture didn't start yesterday. It started the moment the royal story stopped being told by the institution and started being told by the people who left it. Back in January 2020, Harry and Meghan announced they were stepping back from their roles as senior royals. The Queen's statement acknowledged their new arrangement and placed boundaries around what would change moving forward. Reuters also described how that shift meant they would no longer take part in future ceremonial events or tours in the same way, and once you understand that moment, the entire conflict makes more sense. Because that wasn't just a family decision, it was a structural split between two powerful ways of communicating. The palace method is old-school, tight control, short statements, and a belief that silence equals stability. The other method is modern, long-form storytelling, personal emotion, direct audience connection, and a belief that speaking out equals freedom. And when those two collide, it's not just awkward, it's explosive. That's why every time a new interview happens, or a book drops, or a project gets teased, it doesn't just land like entertainment. It lands like a challenge, because if the royal family's power is built on image and continuity, then public storytelling, especially personal storytelling, hits them right where it hurts. Now, here's where things get even more intense. The conflict eventually gained a pressure point that wasn't just emotional. It was legal, and it was security. Over time, Harry's security dispute in the UK became a central sticking point, because security isn't just about protection. It's about status, access, and control. In May 2025, after losing a legal challenge related to security, Harry gave a BBC interview that set off another wave. In reporting, summarized by outlets like AP and Reuters, Harry said he wanted reconciliation, but claimed King Charles wouldn't speak to him because of the security row. Reuters +1, just sit with that for a second. On one side, you have a son saying, "I want peace." On the other side, you have a system that hears, "I want different terms." That's why this never resolves cleanly, because it's not only personal, it's institutional. And when an argument becomes institutional, it stops being about feelings and starts being about precedent. If the monarchy bends too far, it sets a new rule. If it doesn't bend at all, it looks cold. Either way, it loses something. Now fast forward to September 2025, when Harry returned to the UK for engagements. Reuters reporting at the time said he wasn't expected to see William, with commentary suggesting the relationship wasn't ready to be repaired. Reuters +1, and that detail matters more than people realize. Because a lot of viewers assume the royal rift is one big thing, like a single argument that can be resolved with one conversation. But real family fractures don't work like that. They separate into layers. Charles and Harry might have their own path. William and Harry have another, and those paths don't move at the same speed. That's why even when Reuters later described Harry reconciling with the king after a long stretch, it didn't automatically mean the brother bond was repaired. Reuters, and when you don't get a clear reunion, the internet rushes in to fill the blank space. This is where rumor becomes a replacement for reality, because the royal story is a perfect environment for it. There's secrecy. There are walls. There are sources. There are people who know just enough to sound convincing and just little enough to be impossible to verify. So the rumor playbook is simple. Step 1, take a real tension everyone already believes exists. Step 2, attach a leaked statement that sounds like what people think a future king would say. Step 3, add one tiny detail that feels insiderish, like the statement dropped at dawn or aides were stunned. Step 4, repeat it across platforms until it becomes familiar. And once something becomes familiar online, the brain starts treating it like truth. That's how you get waves of content, insisting William will strip titles any day now. The reality is more boring and more complicated. There is an existing agreement that the Essexes would not use HRH titles because they're not working royals. And that has been repeatedly referenced when new mini-controversies pop up like debate over HRH. Being used privately versus commercially. The royal family, plus to the standard plus to the rule, is real. But tomorrow morning, everything gets taken away. Certainty is usually speculation dressed up like certainty. And speculation sells because it feels like you're hearing the truth before the world does. But here's the part that's almost funny. If it wasn't so effective, the palace rarely needs to fight these rumors head-on, because the palace's most powerful move has always been the same. Silence. Silence. Silence forces everyone else to do the talking. And the more everyone else talks, the easier it becomes to point at the chaos and say, see, that's why we don't. But silence has a downside. When you don't fill the space with facts, the space fills with guesses. That's why this entire saga keeps looping. People aren't just addicted to the drama. They're addicted to the uncertainty. And when the public is living on uncertainty, even a normal moment can feel like a coded message. Which brings us to Christmas 22/5, because in a year where the royal story has been heavy, King Charles' Christmas message landed as a signal whether he meant it that way or not. Reuters described Charles emphasizing unity and diversity, compassion and kindness in his Christmas Day message, while also noting the royal family's year of strain and some healing. Reuters and the internet immediately did what it always does. It translated unity into reconciliation. It translated compassion into Harry is coming back. It translated healing into William is ready to forgive. But a public tone isn't the same thing as a private resolution. Sometimes a public tone is simply strategy. Calm the temperature. Widen the tent. Stop the bleeding. Because the monarchy doesn't just manage family feelings, it manages national symbolism. So even if Charles leans toward warmth publicly, William could still be locked into something colder privately, protecting the structure, the boundaries, the future. And that's the part the viral clips understand. They know viewers believe William is the hard line. They know viewers believe Meghan is the storyteller. They know viewers believe Harry is caught in the middle, so the content machine turns those beliefs into one-sentence headline. William is done. It feels satisfying. It feels final. It feels like closure. But real life rarely gives you closure like that. Real life gives you something messier. Years of tension, different versions of the same events, and two sides building their own audiences. One side speaks rarely, but with authority. The other side speaks often, but with emotion. And the public keeps bouncing between them, trying to decide which one feels more true. And this is where you have to ask the uncomfortable question. What? If the big statement you're waiting for is never coming, what if there's never going to be a single moment that resolves everything? Because the monarchy doesn't work in viral moments. It works in slow erosion and slow repair. And the internet doesn't work in slow repair. It works in shock, outrage, and speed. So when those two worlds collide, you get the same cycle over and over. A rumor drops, people pick sides. The palace says nothing. Then a new headline appears, and everyone acts like it's the final straw. Until the next one. And if you're still waiting for the final blow statement, here's what usually happens instead. A slow tightening, not dramatic, not cinematic. Quiet, procedural, almost boring on paper, but brutal in effect. Because the monarchy doesn't normally destroy someone with one sentence. It squeezes the oxygen out of the relationship with rules, distance, and time. And once you notice that, you start seeing the pattern everywhere. Think about the levers the palace actually has. It can control access. It can control appearances. It can control who gets briefed, who gets invited, who stands on which balcony, who gets photographed with whom. And when those things change, the message is loud even if no one says a word. That's why silence isn't passive. It's active power, and it sets up the next phase. The public starts hunting for proof of what the silence means. So when a rumor claims William issued an ultimatum, people don't even need it to be real. They only need it to feel consistent with the cold. Distance they already sense. But here's where a lot of royal commentary goes off the rails. It treats titles like an on-off switch that William can flip with one angry phone call. That's not how it works. Titles and styles are wrapped in tradition, law, and precedent. Some changes can come from the monarch's decisions. Some involve formal instruments, some are political minefields. And that complexity is exactly why clickbait takes the shortcut. It skips the boring process and jumps straight to the dramatic outcome, which is convenient because it keeps you watching. Now, watch what happens when the internet can't get a clear official answer. It starts inventing documents. A leaked memo, a sealed file, a secret HR report, a transcript, a recording, and the reason those ideas go viral is simple. They create the illusion that somewhere a definitive truth exists, and you're one upload away from seeing it. But the royal world is built to prevent exactly that. Not because everyone's innocent, but because the institution survives by controlling what becomes record. So when you see claims about secret files or recordings, the responsible way to treat them is interesting if true, explosive if confirmed, meaningless if not. And most of the time, they remain unverified, just strong enough to fuel a new cycle. That's why the smartest royal content doesn't just ask what happened, it asks who benefits from you believing it happened. Because each side, whether it's official sources, sympathetic outlets, critics, influencers, even random accounts get something from the chaos. Attention, leverage, sympathy, pressure, money. And when you zoom out, you realize this isn't a single feud. It's a competition between two ecosystems. One ecosystem runs on restraint and symbolism. The other runs on visibility and storytelling. One wins by refusing to react. The other wins by making sure everyone reacts. So what happens next isn't a Hollywood final showdown. It's smaller, sharper moves. A public message about unity that calms the temperature, while private doors stay locked. A carefully chosen event schedule that signals who's central and who's out. A new wave of headlines that hint at talks or peace, without ever showing proof. And right there, that gap between what's hinted and what's confirmed is where the internet lives. Now, here's the part people don't like hearing. Even if there is reconciliation someday, it probably won't look like the fantasy version. It won't be a warm hug in front of cameras. It won't be a joint interview. It won't be, "We were wrong." If it happens, it'll look like quiet easing. A single meeting, never officially confirmed. A small shift in language, a subtle change in who gets mentioned if anyone does. Because in that world, admitting the fight is almost as risky as the fight itself. And that's why the most believable future isn't a sudden reunion or a sudden banishment. It's a long, uneven stalemate where the public keeps getting fed moments that feel like progress, while the core relationship stays unresolved. Which brings us back to the line that explains everything. Attention is power now. The monarchy used to be able to wait out a scandal, but the internet doesn't wait, it refreshes. So here's your final mental test. Whenever you see the next viral William versus Meghan clip, does it cite an official source? Does it match verified reporting? Or is it built from vibes, recycled quotes, and insiders? Because if it's the third one, it's not telling you what happened. It's telling you what the internet wants you to feel. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. So the real question isn't will William drop a brutal statement? It's this: if silence used to protect the crown, what happens when silence becomes the very thing that lets rumors rule? And if you want, I can take your competitor transcript style and turn it into a version that's still dramatic and addictive, but cleaner, more believable, and safer legally. No fake sealed files, no made-up quotes, and rumors framed clearly as rumors. And that's where the next phase gets weirder. Because when silence creates a vacuum, two things rush in to fill it every single time: fan theories and anonymous sources. And those two don't just report the story. They become the story. Here's how it usually plays out. A tabloid headline hints at tensions behind the scenes. A social media account stitches it into a timeline. A YouTube video adds dramatic voiceover and declares it confirmed, then someone else reacts to that reaction like it's evidence. And within a week, you've got millions of people confidently arguing over something that started as a vague line, like friends say. That's why these royal narratives feel like they're always escalating, even when nothing official changes. Because escalation gets clicks. And the biggest accelerant of all is when the story adds one forbidden element. That sounds too serious to be fake. A leaked call, a sealed report, a private letter, a hidden recording. Those words instantly raise the stakes. They make the viewer think, oh, this is real. But most of the time, you're not being shown proof. You're being shown a promise of proof, and the promise is usually stronger than the proof itself. Now, to be fair, not every rumor is invented out of thin air. Some speculation grows from real, documented tensions, the security dispute, the public interviews, the way the palace communicates versus how the Sussex brand communicates. And the fact that William and Harry had been repeatedly described as distant, those are the ingredients. What the internet does is cook it into a plot, and the plot always needs a villain, a victim, and a hero. So, depending on who's telling it, you'll see one of two versions. In one version, the palace is cold, controlling, and punishes anyone who threatens the image. In the other version, the Sussexes are the ones using media pressure to keep the family cornered. Both versions can be argued. Both have audiences. Both have receipts and blind spots. But what matters more is this: the longer the stalemate lasts, the more profitable the story becomes for everyone around it. Not necessarily for the people living it, but for the ecosystem feeding on it, and that's why you should watch the next moves. The same way you'd watch a chess game, not because it's fun, because it reveals who has the leverage. If the palace feels secure, it doesn't need to speak. If it feels threatened, you get firmer language, sharper boundaries, and very controlled moments of clarification. And if the Sussex side feels secure, they don't need to respond quickly. If they feel threatened, you'll see more narrative-building interviews, projects, a friend says, carefully timed reflections. That's not hate. That's strategy. And strategy is what turns a family rift into a global entertainment product. But here's the part that flips the whole